welcome once again to GH Mix on iCulture TV. In Ghana, when we talk about elections and politics, most people are fixated on the two major parties, the National Democratic Congress, NDC, and the New Patriotic Party, NPP. However, my guest coming up right now is bent on changing the narrative. He is coming in as a third force, as an independent candidate. Welcome to iCulture TV, Mr. Kofi Koranteng, presidential hopeful for the 2024 Ghana elections, I should say. Welcome, Mr. Koranteng.
Good morning. How are you doing? Very good morning to your viewers, listeners, and to yourself. Thanks for having me on this great network, GA News.
And we do appreciate your time. It's pretty early, and I know you have a busy schedule. You still took some time aside to speak with us, so we do appreciate that a lot. Mr. Koranteng, first of all, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself before we go into the details of your presidential bid, briefly?
Okay, so I was born at Kolebu Teaching Hospital. I actually live maybe about 5 minutes from where I was born, Latebiokoshi. So I went to Agri Memorial International School on Ringway, next to the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. And then I went to Cape Coast University Primary, and then went to Garrison Primary in Kumasi, sat for my common entrance, then went to Odisado College. From there went to London, and then to New York, where I've lived most of my life before I moved back to Ghana in 2019.
I see. So
now my background is in finance and engineering. I'm married with 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and I do some advocate. I advocate for Ghanaians living abroad, and it was on that vein that we pushed for the representation of the People's Amendment Act. We won the case against the Electoral Commission some years back to get the Ghana Electoral Commission to implement ROPAA so Ghanaians living abroad will be able to vote. But to this day, that has not happened. For those of you who are, on the lookout for that, and that's why we have moved to Ghana, and we are fighting to get us on the ballot so we can actually take the bull by the horn. And for those of you who are abroad who, because of the system, they don't want you to vote, you could get your friends and family members in Ghana to vote so we can turn this wrecking ship around.
Okay, that's a nice segue to my next question. I was actually going to ask about the ROPAA, the Representation of People's Amendment Act. How practical do you think this is, though? And
if you could speak up a little bit, I don't know, can you hear me? Can you hear me? How's the volume?
I can hear you clearly. I hope you can hear me now.
Oh, you can?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you good. So I was asking about the ROPAA that you just mentioned, the Representation of People's Amendment Act. How practical is it? And within what time frame do you think it can really be implemented?
Within what time frame? Say that again?
Do you think it can be implemented?
Well, it should have been implemented. So I don't have a time frame because there are no constraints. There shouldn't be any constraints, as was told to us by Mahama in 2014 when he came to Worcester in the U.S. and as seconded by the current president Nana Addo Dankwa when he came to Africa House at NYU. So I don't I can't put a time on it because it should have been done. There's nothing stopping them. They just haven't done it yet. So it's not a matter of time. It's a matter of will.
But how practical is it? How really practical is it? Because Ghanaians live almost everywhere in this world. So how practical do you think it is to organize elections for Ghanaians living in every single country around the world?
It's very practical because there are countries who have done it, and we just have to copy from what they've done. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So it's practical. We have the money. We get up and set up 6 new regions just like that. We get the Electoral Commission to establish 6 additional regions, and we have the money for that. Why don't we have for people who put $6 billion plus into the economy every year? So it's practical. All that has to be done is for the Electoral Commission, wherever Ghana is. And now with artificial intelligence and virtual reality, it's very easy to do because Ghana doesn't have to do it. We could just contract organizations around the world who would do it for us. You know,
don't you think that presents trust issues? Because already there are, people don't totally trust the electoral system. Now we're going to bring in virtual reality. Do you think Ghanaians are ready for that?
Well, we're running a system now that we don't trust, but we're running it, right? So, well, yeah, I mean, if that's your argument, so why don't you just run what needs to be run?
Okay, all right.
Let's worry about whether people trust it or not. It's not for the Electoral Commission or the government of Ghana to worry about whether citizens trust or don't trust. It's for the responsibility and the mandate of the government of Ghana to provide the service to Ghanaians.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
So, as far as that is concerned, leave the citizens to worry about the trust factor. Provide us with a service because that's what we're getting anyway. We don't trust them, but we're still here. I'm in Ghana.
Okay,
point made. Do I trust the healthcare system? I don't.
Do
I trust the political system? I don't. Do I trust the justice system? I don't. But I'm in it, right? So it's no excuse not to provide the citizens with something that they deserve.
All right. Point made. And I just want to make a little side note that with what they're trying to implement with a Ghana card and all of that, that will put a mammoth task, on the shoulders of the EC because even in Ghana, people are having a hard time securing the Ghana cards, and they're trying to use the Ghana card as a basis for voting. But let's move on. I have more questions that I need to get through with you. You're running for president in the upcoming elections. Most Ghanaians, like I said in my intro, are fixated on the NDC and the NPP. What do you think you're bringing to the table that's going to cut you a significant slice of the pie?
Well, what we bring into the table is accountability, is cutting down on government, is fixing roads, law and order, changing the constitution so criminals will be held to book. Reducing size of government is a big thing. Putting the youth to work, building a horizontal infrastructure so we could create industry. And there's no money in the system. And if there's no wealth, how do people spend money to create an economic combustion? So these are all some of the things we're going to do, which I know some of you are saying, listening to me now, say, well, that sounds like that's what everybody should do. Yeah, you're right. It's common sense. But these guys are not doing it. That's why the country has spiraled down in the last almost 32 years. And that's why we are different. Because nobody talks what we talk about, which is the simple common sense things. I mean, I just came from a radio station, Angel FM, and the topics were to talk, one of the major things to talk about was the mid-year review budget. And it just doesn't make any sense tickling ourselves because we always focusing on the minutest detail, which really doesn't have any major impact or effect because they're not focusing on the big ticket items that really will make the corrections in the market, like employment. Well, we don't have employment because we don't have industry. We don't have industry because we've neglected agriculture. So if you don't start from the root cause of the problem, you think you're fixing something, but the bucket we're fetching the water with is leaking. So regardless of who puts water in the bucket, IMF go around the world with all these democratic organizations putting water in our bucket, at some point it's going to dry out because there are leaks on the bucket that have not been plugged yet. So our attitude and the ethic we bring in is, why don't we plug the leaks? So at least with the little water we have, we could use it, because it's not going to just sip out of the bucket. I mean, it just sounds like it's common sense, but that's exactly what these guys don't see as common sense, and that's why they are fumbling at different things and that's why we've been at this thing for 32 years and we're spiraling down. So that's what makes us different.
Okay, so you've already touched on some of the major things, but let me ask you, what are the pillars on which your campaign stands?
Change of constitution, national development plan. These are the two really big ones. Reducing government. The next layer is reducing government.
You've mentioned change of constitution. Now that's a big one. What do you see in the constitution that needs to be changed?
We need to strip the presidential powers. The president has too much power. We need to take away the exemptions so that if the president steals, we could prosecute him, put him in jail for life. We need to reduce the size of government, take away all the perks like Article 71 and ex-gratia, because it's a necessary waste. Okay. Yeah. And then we need to criminalize criminality. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but in Ghana, criminality is not criminal. People do things that are criminal and get away with it. So we need to actually criminalize criminality.
Now, you realize that as president, you cannot single-handedly effect this, right? It has to be a collective effort with the parliament and the judiciary, and indeed with the whole citizenry. Do you think that as an independent, you can marshal all these forces together to effect such a mammoth task?
Anytime somebody asks me that question, I know they haven't read the Constitution in detail, so they don't know. So let me tell you. With our current Constitution, there is so much you could do as president. But now let me take it a step further. Most of the things we're going to do, which I just said are big ticket items, are things you have to do at the referendum level. At the referendum level, you don't go through parliament, you go to the people of Ghana. Incidentally, the people of Ghana are the ones who voted for you to come into power. So if you bring them a bill, a proposal that, hey, you voted me into power, so help me change these things in a referendum so we can change Ghana for you. Do you think they're going to say no?
No, except that I want to make the point that I also did rope in the people, right? So your point about me not reading the Constitution, I think it doesn't apply. But anyways, let's move on. Because what it is that you still need to marshal people's acceptance of your proposal. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, you have to campaign for it. So when we voted to be president, then first of all, everything I talk about as far as my proposal for being considered to be president of Ghana to serve my people is, if you take a look at it, it's not in effect yet. So I have to come in to put it into effect. So basically, I'm coming into, the moment you vote me into power, you voted me into power because of the proposed policies that I gave you. So allow me to do that. and I don't think people are going to resist. We're going to get the 70-40 and pass the referendum so we can have the big ticket things done. And you got to understand how the crumbling system works in Parliament. So once we get the big ticket items done, it's going to affect the small ticket items by virtue of how things are going to go, because we're changing things at the top.
Okay.
So then the small things that would have ordinarily gone through Parliament, we're not going to have a problem with, because we've taken away the hurdles at the top.
Okay. All right. Now let's look at the economy, the big one. Ghana's economy is in tatters right now. That's a no-brainer. Everybody knows this. What is the magic one that you're going to wave, if I should say, just using that imagery?
What is the what? Say that again?
What is your big plan to restore Ghana's economy?
It's very simple. Okay, so understand what is happening. We don't have income. We have an artificial income. The artificial income we have is borrowed money, loans. That's not real income. Okay, it comes with a liability. So we're going to push that to the side. We're going to focus on real income. Real income is what we generate organically and locally, which is agriculture. So we're going to invest $10 billion into agriculture a year for the next 10 years. I'm going to answer the question of where you're going to get the money from in a second, but I just want you to hear me out. So the output from agriculture is what we add value and we export. We get money in the form of foreign exchange reserve. We pay down the debt to controllable levels and do a horizontal expansion and build even more factories. So now we're not just, because you got to understand, if you understand how the mechanics of population is going to go, in the next 10, 15 years, at 500 kilometers to the left of us, which is the biggest francophone economy, Ivory Coast, and 500 kilometers to the right of us, which is the biggest anglophone economy. And if you were to go as a radius round with Accra and Ghana in the middle, it's going to be a metropolis of over close to 500 million people. Unless we all get on a plane and go to Dubai, there's no place here in West Africa and Africa for them to shop. We want to make Ghana that center. You see, these guys are not looking into the future, so they're not looking at these numbers. So what we're doing is, if this what we did, like they did for Dubai, United Arab Emirates, we're going to do for Ghana. So our people and the rest of Africans don't have to go get on a plane and get to Dubai. They can come to Ghana. So what we are doing is we're creating a hub here in Ghana where there is everything. But to do that, we got to get the income, and that's why there's a need for the horizontal expansion, the horizontal integration by building factories, building industry. But we need the income to do that, and we're going to do that at the first layer to add value to the output. I'll give you an example. Our syndication loan for cocoa, just for cocoa, is $3 billion approximately every year. If we did the international standard value to cocoa at 20 times plus, at 20 it would be 60 billion. Why would you want to go to IMF for $3 billion if you could generate 60 billion internally, organically? But we let some folks who are sitting outside of Ghana, foreigners, put together a hedge fund, come in and take our cocoa for $3 billion and go make the ridiculous numbers on the cocoa by selling it on the international market, and we don't have any say in it. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
So, and so now to my point, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, tallest building in the world, it's $1.5 billion. Imagine for 1 year alone, if we added value to cocoa alone, just cocoa, we get 60 billion. The fact that the biggest cost item with construction is labor, and in Africa, labor is cheap. We could do a Burj Khalifa for less than $1 billion. So we could imagine building 60 Burj Khalifas in Ghana at least having the money to do it in 1 year. Next year you get another 60 billion. Wouldn't that be sick? But now where I want to take your mind to is Egypt. In Egypt we have the TIJA. TIJA is the Tijan Economic Development Area. The Chinese built this in Egypt for $5 billion. They built a 3 square mile development hub village with hotels, industry, everything. Residences, $5 billion. We could build $5 billion in every region in the 10 regions that we're gonna, we're gonna take it from 16 to 10. But if we did it for 10 regions, it would be 5 times 10, which is 50 billion. We will still have $10 billion surplus just on a year's income on cocoa. These guys are not thinking. They don't have the mental capacity.
Now you did mention that you were going to
oil yet. Oil is, we are an importation, oil importation nation. We drill our crude and we give it to somebody else to refine. We have Tema Oil refinery sitting there collecting dust because apparently the machines are outdated. The money we could have used for the machines, we used for a cathedral. Makes sense to you?
No.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something different. So you're not really helping me here. But
no, I was actually going to ask that you mentioned that you were going to tell us where the money is going to come from. So don't forget to rope that in at the end of your answer.
Okay, so let's go back to the money. We only collect 30% of taxes from everybody who makes taxable income from Ghana. 30% because we don't have the infrastructure. Simple to solve. We just have to do. It's sometimes I pinch myself because I can't believe how ridiculous this thing is. Because we don't have what is called an integrated national ID and address system, we don't know how many people are in the system to tax them. And now let me give you another statistic. There are 80% of the small, small and medium enterprises are in the informal. 80% of the entire employment sector is in the micro, small, and medium enterprises. 80%. 90% of that 80% block is in the informal sector. Crazy. So now, how do you really regulate the tomato seller, the pepper seller in a market? You don't. You don't know how much money they generated. They don't pay taxes. You see?
They actually do pay taxes. I think that the taxes are misapplied, but they do pay taxes. People go to the markets and they take money from the district assemblies and co. They do pay taxes.
But that's the $1, 1 cedi, 1, 2 cedi goes into somebody's pocket. Yes. It doesn't go on the grid, so it doesn't go anywhere. The district assemblies, they just chop it. That's their fufu money. Game about I'm digitizing. He doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. The smartest digitization he could have done was to move people from the informal to the formal. He hasn't done that yet. So there's money still sitting on the streets. We haven't gone on the
How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you move people from the informal to the formal sectors?
Formalizing it. Okay, so number one, we don't even know if the people exist, even though we can see them. But technically, we don't know if they exist because they're not on our books. Because we don't have an integrated national ID and address system. Till you have an integrated national ID and address system to put them on what we call a national data repository system, you can't count them. If you can't count them, you can hold them accountable. Simple. I'll give you an example. When you go to Singapore, everybody in Singapore is counted because they've put everybody in a home. They have an address. You see? Smart. So the government has built all these buildings, 50-story, if you're a single person, you don't married, you don't have any children, they put you in clusters in an apartment. If you're married, they give you an apartment, you live. You know why they do that? Because they put a number on everybody. If they know you live here, then they can come look for you. Then they know what work you do, because you got to, as part of the processing to get you qualified, you have to show how you make your income. If you don't make income, they put you in a building and they supplement, or they pay for it. But at least they know you live here. You see?
Yep.
Simple stuff. Now you have hundreds of thousands of people laying on the street in kiosks, in containers. You don't even know if they exist. How are you going to collect anything from them? You don't know they exist.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
Yeah, so that's just one income. The second income is, we know from the Accountant General, $3 to $4 billion is goes to corruption one way or the other. Somehow it goes to waste. $3 to $4 billion every year. The Accountant General tells us, hey, I couldn't find this money. I know the money came in, but I don't know where it went. Well, why is that? Because we don't have systems. So just to keep the talking abbreviated, I'm just going to say systems. On another time, I could elaborate on what systems really mean, because a lot of people really don't understand what systems is. So systems, we put in systems that are incorruptible. So the money is digital money. You're not going to be able to get your hands on the money to take some. It's digital. And then the last thing is the tax rebates that we give to all these foreign companies. They don't do anything for us, because let me tell you, you give them a tax break, they come, they make the money. You think they spend the money here or they take the money out? That's why our Forex is in trouble. They change the money and they take the dollars out. The government doesn't even have a policy that, hey, listen, if you're going to make money in our domain, keep 70% liquid in this economy. They don't have any policy. So the people make 100%, they fly it all out. You see?
Yep.
We're gonna. This is this is what's happening, and the big companies that make the big money are foreign companies in Ghana. That's why they talk a good game, like, oh, we're doing this, we're food for this, all these social interventions, but we don't see anything because it's so little it doesn't move the needle.
Okay, Kofi, let's look at employment. I know most of what you've said, actually connects with employment. From what you're saying, it's a no-brainer that this is going to be a conduit for creating a lot of employment. But condense it for us. What's your general plan for employing or for creating employment for the youth of Ghana?
Very simple. The value add chains are going to absorb the unemployment. Why? It's because the moment we put money into agriculture, the beautiful thing with agriculture is it doesn't take a long time for you to see a return. So the output from the agriculture we put into the industry, that's going to absorb unemployment. Then another thing, and that's a big thing, that these guys don't have a clue about. So you will appreciate it a lot because you're outside of Ghana. What Ghana is missing is wealth generation. The wealth generation is on the level 1. To go to the next generation of wealth generation, we need to have a savvy middle class. Ghana does not have a middle class. You interviewing me now are our middle class, and you are not in Ghana. So what are the things that we can do so that more of you abroad will come to Ghana? Well, security, roads, living conditions, great systems, healthcare systems. And the reason is, when we do that, these are the concerns of the diaspora. If the diaspora, who is the Ghana's middle class, don't want to come to Ghana because of these things, then to get them to come in, we fix these things. They're going to bring their money and guess what? Human capital. And when they come, they set up businesses and it absorbs the unemployment. Simple.
Okay. Education. We know the whole mantra of the MPP about, free SHS, whatnot. We know what the NDC had done prior to that. What are you going to do different?
Okay, so the policy with free SHS is a good policy. It doesn't make any kind of sense. And let me prove to you. A child's brain is best to absorb when they are 1 to 6, 7 years old. So if you're going to bring in a policy to help children, you need to bring in the policy at the foundational level of the child, not at the terminal level of the child. Free SHS focuses at the terminal level. By the terminal level, their brains are already cooked. You can't really do much. That's why there's such a high failure rate, because it's hard for them to learn. So rather than push all the money, 1 billion cedis a year into free SHS, what I would do is we're going to spread the wealth, the money, on that entire spectrum of education. So that by the time the children come out, they matriculate, they have a sense they've developed some skills. Even if they don't continue to higher education, if they come bail out, they can use the skills they've acquired to set up businesses.
Kofi, let me push back a little bit on that. If you will, let me push back a little bit on that. So I think the idea is more related to cost, right? Because parents, most parents can afford to put their children in school at those early stages. But then later on, it gets a bit more expensive. And I think that's what the idea is, to absorb that cost at that level where it's more difficult for parents to absorb.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense, because right now there are about 3 million unemployed, unskilled graduates. So what the proposal I'm making is rather than you have this bottleneck, why don't we put money into the horizontal expansion that I'm talking about? Absorb the 3 million graduates off the street, put them into industry, and now they're making money, they're contributing to the grid. And then you tax that and you use it for free SHS for the rest of the people. Does it make sense?
Yeah, generally speaking.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that, because it does. You see?
How did you know I was going to say that? I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, because it's just common sense. But you see, but this is exactly why these guys don't get it. So they've made it very top heavy, and it's not yielding, because the guys come out, and to bring somebody from Efia Kwanta to put them in a course of micro, chemical, biometrical engineering, they come out, all they see is blinks. They don't see anything because they don't even understand the course they took. It sounded good. This was the only course they could get. There was a vacancy in, so they went into the course. Now they graduated. There's nothing in Ghana that uses that course. So another thing we're going to do with the education is, education as it is in Ghana now, it's not relevant. People just do courses. Everybody's ICT. I was like, what's that? Yeah, information technology, nonsense. There are no jobs. So rather than you just have people do sexy courses, why don't we find out the practical needs of the nation and then incent institutions to do courses, so when people graduate, they have a place to go to help us build. Sense or no sense?
Lot of sense, Kofi. Now let me quickly alert you that
I didn't hear a response. Does it make sense or it doesn't?
It makes a lot of sense, Kofi. It does.
Okay.
Except that I think there's more. There's more.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, there's more flesh that needs to be put on the bone. So now continue on that for me, because I want. I want us to put a major question in the next segment.
Students, and then what we do is we align the needs of the country to curriculums. The curriculums are bogus. They're all from our slave masters, the colonial masters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really help us now that we need people in the area of infrastructure and technical skill set. We don't have that because everybody, number one, nobody likes to live in Ghana. Everybody wants to do a course where they can get a visa and go abroad. And we need to change that. Get back into the system where the people who are matriculating out of the system are going into industry, are going into corporations, and they're seeing some yield. Not jobs that are paying people 300-500 cedis a month. You can't buy anything with 300-500 cedis a month.
No, you can't.
You can't live in Ghana now with less than at least 12 to 1,500 cedis a month. You know, from here I go and do lunch for corn and beans, which is like the cheapest staple. Yeah, you have to spend 20 cedis. So 20 cedis, if I eat, forget 3 times a day, it's not in the book anymore, but 2 times a day. 2 times a day, twice a day, 7 days, at 40 cedis, 140 cedis a week. And 140 cedis a week, how are you going to be able to survive? On 1,000 cedis, you haven't paid transportation yet, you haven't paid rent. It's impossible to live in Ghana less than 1,200. So then, now you see why corruption is where it is. But now, who caused the corruption? Well, we voted for people who don't have the mental capacity.
So, let's move on to another major topic in my arsenal. Kofi, galamsey is a major issue, major problem for Ghana. What is your plan to deal with that?
All right. So, can you hear me? How well can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. I can hear you clearly.
Excellent. So, see, galamsey is not a problem. Galamsey, the people who reside over galamsey is the problem. How is galamsey a problem? Unless, of course, you don't understand galamsey.
I do understand galamsey, and that's why I know it's a problem, because it's a dragon with many tentacles. And so we can't oversimplify it. It is a big problem.
Okay, so in my book, it's not a problem.
Okay,
and
tell us why.
It's not a problem is it's that to fix, and let me prove to you why. The people who are in authority, who are involved in galamsey, they know everybody who is in galamsey. They know. So it's the government and their corrupt officials who are in galamsey. I've spoken to people who are the boys who work in the fields, and they have told us that they know who is in galamsey. They know everybody who is in galamsey, but they have allowed themselves. We have pastors in there. We have politicians from NDC, politicians from MPP. We have statesmen. We have academia, we have media people in there, so they know. So so how does that become a problem? We created it, and if we want to take it out, we take it out. The car will do exactly what you tell it to do. The car will not do more, will not do less. So if you want to stop the car, you hit on the brakes. If you want the car to move faster, you step on the accelerator. So what I'm saying is it's only because they turned a blind eye to galamsey, that's why it seems. They've created this fake hardship, artificial hardship with galamsey to make you believe what you believe, that, oh, it's a really tough thing. What is tough about it? Do we not have an agency called the Ghana Army? Do they not have ammunition, live ammunition? If somebody is out there, I'll tell you, I ask you right now, Kwesi, if somebody's out there to kill you and you had your hands on a gun, would you let them kill you, or would you use the gun to protect your life? What would you do?
It's obvious what I'll do.
Okay, So isn't it obvious if somebody's killing us through our water, what we should do if they're not going to heed to simple instruction to stop? They're killing us. There are kids right now who are being born mutilated. They deformed. And the effects of galamsey is going to linger on for many decades. Listen, the whole Obuasi should be written off. Everybody in Obuasi is cancerous. Everybody in Obuasi. If you drink the water, you eat the food, you have some level of cancer. And they're going to start dying like this. Go there and look at their skin. You'll be blown away. Go there and look at their tongue. Okay? The toxicity levels in their blood is so high, they shouldn't even be walking. But the bodies have just adapted to that level of toxicity. So if you say galamsey is a problem, it's not. Listen, the Anglo Gold has issued a warning that you cannot eat the food from these fields, you cannot drink the water from these lands. But there are people eating, there are people drinking, and the government knows.
Kofi, let's move the discussion forward. Let's move it forward. Yeah, I think I've got you on that point. But the other thing I want to ask you is that in your previous presidential bid, you described the two leading parties as organized crime cartels. I'm paraphrasing. Organized crime institutions, if you will. Do you think that if given the chance, you will really have the guts and the will, the political will, to prosecute people in government, present and past, who have done some criminal stuff and need to be taken care of? Do you think you can do that?
Are you looking through your camera now?
Absolutely.
Look at me.
I'm watching you.
Look at this face.
Yep.
Do you really think this face is it's a pretty face? I'm here for a party. You think I'm here for a party? Have you watched my videos?
I have.
Have you
a lot of them.
Videos? Okay. So you should know the level of resentment and the when I talk about it, I lose my cool, you know. So I usually want to make fun of it and not talk about it because it really does get me upset, really upset, to a point where I can't control my rage. Because what these guys see, if you lived in Ghana, you would see firsthand and what they've done to the land. You would cry. You know, sometimes I sit in my room and I cry because I just don't understand. Because, listen, Kwesi, you can, if you really wanted to take the money, listen, there's crime in America, there's crime in UK. You could take the money and still do the job. You could take the money and still do the job. Take care of the people, build hospitals, build roads, build infrastructure. You don't do anything. And then you allow for everybody to come in and rape everybody else. I don't understand. So if you are destroying the golden goose, at some point you have to know that the golden goose will not be able to sustain that habit of yours that is killing the golden goose.
Kofi, have you been
common sense.
Okay? Have you been clear to run for this next year's election? Have you picked up your forms?
I am clear to run because I don't have a criminal record.
Okay. What I mean though is, have you picked up your forms? Have you done all the necessary fillings and filings?
There's no picking up forms till the Electoral Commission officially opens the doors for that somewhere in late second quarter.
Okay, because you're independent. Now,
so once they open the doors, they make an announcement, and you go and you get your copy of the nomination forms, you fill it out and you submit it, and they'll tell you when you submit it. Okay.
Now you don't have a criminal record like you just said, and
no, I have a criminal clearance certificate. That's
all right.
it.
All right.
From the last 2020 presidential bid, I cleared myself, and I'll go get it again this year. I'll go get it again next year just to make sure all the years I've done it.
Okay. In the last election, however, there were some issues about your bid, i.e., there was this talk about some forged signatures and stuff like that in your filings. What do you want to speak to that?
Okay, so there's no such thing. Okay, what the Electoral Commission do, is they call people on my list and they ask them, hey. I don't know what conversation transpired between the Electoral Commission, but they can actually get people on my list to say that, oh, Kofi did not come and see us to sign these signatures. So the big question is, how did your signature get on there? Well, we can't speak to the people. The Electoral Commission will not tell us who the people are, so we can't question them. And they just take it to court and present it to a judge and say, oh, Kofi forged. Even my vice president pick, who signed the signature at EC, they said he forged the signature because his two signatures were not identical. Yeah, my vice president. Now, in fact, I'm that stupid. I'm a principal, okay? I have a series 7, 63, 56, a couple more. I'm in the securities business. I'm a principal. So if you know America, you know this is the most regulated industry in the world. Right or right? You know the securities industry in America regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA is one of the most regulated industries in the world. I haven't had a citation in 24 years that I was there. Not even a violation. Not even a customer complaint. But then I come to Ghana and I forge signatures. But incidentally, this is what happened. They call me and say, oh, listen, you were a criminal. We reported you to the CID. But then, this is your 100,000 CD check that you put in to do your filing. I said, wait a minute. I'm a criminal. Why are you giving me the money? Hey, just take it and get away from here.
Kofi, do you trust the Electoral Commission? Do you trust the Electoral Commission as it's currently constituted?
What option do I have? I mean, that's a tricky question. See, that's the most difficult question you're asking me. The truth of the matter is, what difference does it make?
It makes a lot of difference. We also what happened in 2020.
Because it would make a damn difference what I think about the Electoral Commission. After what they did to me, but you know how many people have called me and said, Kofi, do not leave the Electoral Commission alone. Don't say anything because they'll come after you. I was like, what did I do? I'm just telling the truth. But you know how it is in Ghana. But listen, I hope that they don't do that nonsense again in 2024 because we know how we're going to go about it because now we're going to give it to an attorney. They're going to call everybody on our list and say, hey, Bako, did you endorse for Kofi Koranteng? Yes. Fill this affidavit. Okay, good. So we're going to actually have paperwork to back everybody and they're going to be verified. So that's going to be things that are being run right now, and I don't know if you're paying attention. Ghana, and I don't know if you heard about a system wanting to overthrow or get the IGP out of office, Dampari out of office, because it's not going to be good for the elections.
Yep.
I don't know if you heard that tape.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't know if you heard about Cecilia Dapa
yes.
deciding that, I never knew the dollar mattress felt so good on your back that she decided to make the mattress out of dollars and the pillow side is all euros. I mean, one day I hope I get the chance on my own money to test the softness of sleeping on the dollar. But, these are things that are happening, and people, they come back and they say, oh, listen, I never knew. I mean, my mother just died, right? I never knew people gave money in euros and dollars at funerals.
That's preposterous. So that's just ridiculous.
With my mother's funeral, I'm going to get some dollars, and for those of you who are watching us from America, you're going to send some donations in for my mother's bereavement in dollars and pound sterling, because I've never heard this amount of money being collected for bereavement.
It's
people.
just
But
ridiculous.
in Cecilia Dapa's case, that's normal. You know,
Kofi, let me kick back to the EC a little bit, because in 2020 you saw how the EC was fumbling all over the place with the results. You are running. It's very possible that you may win and then have an EC that will come and give 4, 5, 6 different results. That's why I'm asking you if you trust the EC.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, it's not about what I trust or don't trust, it's what we have to live with. It's sad. It's a sad reality. And this is why I'm telling everybody that we have to get a margin of at least 1 million plus to be able to win, because if they do the old Kululu stuff, it falls below 1 million. Now, I let the cat out, so now they're going to say, oh, the 1 million is what Kofi is thinking, let's just Kululu for 2 million, you know.
Okay.
They don't do that.
All right. Now, Kofi, let me also ask you.
This is what
Sorry, finish up.
This is what we're up against. And I've had people tell me that the numbers were massaged from different areas. And this is why the EC got confused in uttering it and changing it a couple of times. When it was in the morning, he says, when it was in the evening, she said, good morning, because they had shut down and done the numbers on a different type of work.
I've never heard that angle. But let me ask you, so in the event, okay, and I'm not saying this to mean that you are not capable of winning the actual election, but what I'm saying is this: in the event that there's, say, a runoff, for instance, and then you have to kind of align with either the NDC or the NPP, which way would you most likely align?
We're not. Simple. We're not. I've had that question asked to me many times. Listen, let me tell you something. Because see, we're not in this thing to just win. We're in this thing to direct a new path, craft a new path for a new democracy in Ghana. A democracy of human excellence. A democracy like what Singapore has, like what China has, like what Germany, and you know, this is a joke. This is a Conte Republic right now in Ghana. You know, so we want to walk away from that. So I'm not going to align with anyone. I mean, can you imagine having fried rice with cocotte? You can't mix these two together. You know, just in case you're planning on testing, you can't. So we are a different breed. We're not going to go and mix ourselves in with a cocotte republic. We're not going to do that. It's going to hurt my soul till my death. I can't do that. I've told Ghanaians, listen, I don't know what's going to happen. It might be a constitutional emergency, but I'm not going to align with anyone. I'm not.
All right. Now, Kofi, as we wrap up, let me ask you, the masses have generally lost a lot of faith in the political system and in the political class, if you can call them that. What do you think you, as a person, and with the machinery that you bring to governance, what do you think you can do to restore the faith in the political system that we have decided to run?
Zero tolerance on corruption, law and order. These two variables will affect that index more than anything, because you can still bring jobs and there will still be corruption.
Yep.
You can still fix roads and there will still be corruption. So there will always be an angst with, oh, well, these people are corrupt, they just fix the roads, but they're still chopping up money. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
But if you had a zero tolerance on corruption eradication, where, you know, the way we're going to treat corruption, the way we're going to deal with corruption, 3 levels. Institutionally, we're going to do criminally, psychologically, and institutionally. So we're the only ones who talked about deal with corruption in all these 3 areas. Okay, because not unless you deal with corruption in all these 3 areas, you're never really going to put it to death. There's going to be some, bacteria life, organic material that's still alive that's going to metamorphosize into some big corruption entity. So when you cut it, you truncate it at the criminal level, which means anytime there's corruption, you investigate, prosecute almost immediately, right? We're not going to have cases sitting like the Woyomi case. It sat around for like 5 years, as long as I was born, and nobody's touching it. Every case that comes into Ghana, they sit on it and wiggle it through the legal system, and there's no disposition. People will not trust a system like that. So you're gonna prosecute to the fullest. I have said my zero tolerance process would mean, if you cause financial loss to the state, as capital punishment. Capital punishment. You're going to be put in a 4-foot jailhouse for the rest of your life.